All right, so here we are. We're going to cover we're going to go back to our MSTC app that we've been working on. So open that guy up. If you haven't updated to Xcode 8, that's fine. Do it as soon as possible though, so that everyone's on the current version. Just makes it easier. Right now, it's probably not going to be real critical, but as we go along and things get a little more complicated, eventually it'll make a difference. These syntax differences and that kind of thing.
It's making me go up to an iPhone 6s. Doesn't have 5 anymore. Has an SE and a 4S. 6 Plus.
Maybe that not all the simulators installed. Not critical. Just go with whatever's available. But it's kind of weird because I have a 5 and 5S, and usually those download after the update. That's the last thing that gets installed. All right. So here it looks like we added the login button last week, and we have a handler so that IB action. By way of review, an IB action is an event handler. IB outlet, of course, is the variable declaration that's wired up, interface builder outlet. And then we made a little method login validate. So in our view controller file, so again, to go over this a little bit, the view controller is generally what handles the events that come up from the view. So the view controller is kind of like a framework, and it does, like the name implies, it's a controller, controls events and stuff, controls the data flow that happens with the view, which is what the user actually interacts with. So I'm going to bring out the side panel here and then go into the storyboard. So in your view controller scene, if I select the view controller itself, that selects the overall framework of the screen. But inside that is the view, and that's actually where all the controls are housed. And so every time we add one of these controls onto the scene, we're actually adding that to the view, and then the view is embedded inside the view controller. But because the view controller is what we want to have handle interaction between the UI and the data and stuff, the view controller is the one who actually usually handles all the events. Doesn't have to. So for example, I think I added in here a method so that if you tap the background of the view, it makes the keyboard go back.
Yes.
So that is the touches began method. So this guy doesn't have to be handled by the view controller. It could be handled by the view as well. The view would be the first thing that would capture it. And if the view controller doesn't handle it, it calls what bubbles up. It bubbles up to the view controller. And the view controller, if it has an event handler, it will handle it. In the case of our view, it will just bubble up because we haven't defined a custom view, but later on in the class, we'll define our own custom views to do drawing and stuff like that. But for now, it's just handled by the view controller. All right, so we have our validation. All it's doing is checking to make sure that you have at least 5 characters in the name and 5 characters in the password. And then if you do, it passes you along. Okay, so now that is getting called by our IB action, which is our button login tapped. All right, so that returns a Boolean, lets us know if the user was validated. But right now, that's all it does. It doesn't do anything else. So we should probably provide the user with some sort of feedback to let them know, okay, you logged in or you weren't logged in. So what I'm going to do, since we're going to cover some new concepts here, I'm going to just go ahead and take note of this. Oh, I probably shouldn't have started up Word. This is going to be painful. Word plays so well with Apple. Come on, baby, you can do it. Starting up, there's a splash screen. And then there's other stuff. I don't want to learn more.
Did we do the button login tap in the last one?
Yep, we did.
We used button login Crest is what I got. That's why.
Yeah, whatever you call it. So that's just as long as you get the handler here, and it works. That's what you call it is that's fine. All right. So tonight we are going to cover the concept of the make this bigger UI alert controller. All right. UI alert controller. So I'm just as we go along and we come up with new terms, I'm going to go ahead and take these down. All right. So we do our self-validate login or login validate, whatever you call that. So now that we've validated, we're going to let the user know if they validated, then we'll do something. If they didn't validate, we'll just tell them they didn't validate and let them try again. So let's do this. So we'll say if be valid, and we get some stuff to put in there, else do other stuff. All right. And we'll create a message that we want to give them. We'll create a string. We'll call that message string. Start off with an empty string. Okay. So if they're validated, we'll say something cool. Congratulations, you're logged in. Except I have to set that equal to our variable. Message string equals that. Otherwise, epic fail. All right. So that's going to be what we're going to display to them, depending on whether they were bad login or not. All right, so now what we're going to do in order to display that, there is this this class. Let's see, what can I call it? I just call it controller. UIAlertController. The UIAlertController is kind of like a JavaScript alert, only it's native, and it allows you to customize little messages. It's something that you want to be modal on top of everything else. So it'll be on top of everything, and the user can't interact with the UI until they dismiss this or take some kind of action. And the constructor will use this long-winded one down here. So this takes a title, which is a string, a message, and then there's a couple different styles and so forth. So go with that guy. So the title will be login, maybe results. That's the title of it. The message will be the message string we created. And then the preferred style, so there's, if you've used an iPhone, there's a couple different kinds. There's the pop-up style, that's the typical like alert style. And then there's what's called an action sheet, which usually is like a list of different actions they can take. We'll try them both out, but we'll start off with the UI. Actually, what you can do nowadays with Swift is just go dot, and it should be smart enough. Yep, smart enough to figure it out. We'll go dot alert. Okay, that constructs the UI alert controller. And then, again, we're going to call upon our Boolean variable to see what happened. And then we'll take different actions depending on what happened. So we'll say if be valid again.
My UI alert controller isn't showing up as far as a thing.
As a type. Let me have a look at it and see. Top of my head, I'm not sure what that would be.
Good, that gives me a time to catch up to you.
I mean, the first one, and this one's not.
maybe well, I just go ahead and delete from allergy tools.
I did that.
And it still doesn't pop up.
This one didn't show up either, I had to type that one.
Try doing a build. Just try building. Yeah.
So you're C, all the above, right?
Sometimes the syntax highlighting takes crap. Yeah, so it builds, so it recognizes it. For some reason, it's not good in IntelliSense. And sometimes when it does that in IntelliSense, it takes a hike, and I'll just close everything down, reopen it, and usually it'll come back. But yeah, it's valid, so it knows about it, it's just not getting IntelliSense.
Still haven't caught up to you.
Okay, that's all right. I'll have a drink of soda. Relax for a minute. Is anyone else having a problem with syntax highlighting or IntelliSense, like not popping up the list of classes? Right.
Well, mine just says that, like yours says, the controller's underlined there.
Yeah, because that's going to tell you that you should convert that to a let instead of a var, but we're going to be modifying it, so.
I have either warnings or red squigglies, but that might just because I'm a horrible programmer.
No, you're not a horrible programmer. I got a red squiggly too.
Hold on, I'm fixing it. Notice what you have. Yes. It wasn't highlighted, so
Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, I just did this if be valid else. I'm going to delete the else block. I don't think we need it actually.
This one?
Yep. Now, fill in the string with these guys. It's really how it's just, you just have to type it.
Shortcuts. And I would understand if Sean didn't go so fast.
All right, that's fine. I'll try to slow down then.
What's up?
I'll try to slow down because I do have that tendency to go too fast.
It's not that you're too.
Go there. Now start typing again. Just string.
Oh, I missed you.
String.
If the IntelliSense it works, it does help.
I know.
Then
It
goes
helps
on.
immensely.
If it doesn't, it's
Done.
Yeah.
Done. See, he's not using the intelligence, so she's actually trying to tell, but it's takes
Okay, yeah, so is yours not popping up too, Nate?
It's popping up.
Oh, okay.
You just didn't realize you could use it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, it is popping up, but again, like I said, you go too fast, and it's not that you're too fast; it's I'm too slow.
It's waiting for them. Too fast. She's too fast for me to.
Yeah,
I don't want her. I'm not going to do that. We're being recorded right now, so I'm going to avoid that kind of thing.
it's just when you're going through it, you know, you kind of just go click, click, click. It's like, all right, it's there, and I'm like, well, how'd you do that?
Okay, well, I'll slow down, and it's not you. I mean, I've had other students say that. Sometimes I get going. I'm trying to think ahead. I'm trying to think of what the logic is I'm trying to show, and then I get ahead of myself and I go too fast. All right, so the alert controller class basically is just a shell that provides the mechanics to pop up an alert box. It gives you some basic, has a string and stuff like that. But then in the olden days, you had an alert view, not an alert controller. In the alert view, you could just do everything in one line of code. But they added, they took that away, and now you have to use an alert controller. And along with the alert controller, you have to use a UIAlertAction class. So I'm going to add another class. I'm going to call it Action. And this guy, excuse me, is going to be a UIAlertAction. So this guy right here, once you can just arrow down, arrow up to it. Once it's highlighted, just hit enter. And then if you hit the opening paren, that'll give you your list of different method options. We want the one on the bottom. We want the second one. Highlight over that and just hit enter, and then that'll give you your method body. So the action, basically, you can kind of think of the action as like a button. Basically, that's what it is. It's a button. It kind of looks like, it doesn't look like a standard button, but for all practical purposes, that's what it is. They call it an action, but this is basically like the OK button. So the title of it is just going to be that. It's going to be OK. And then the style, again, there's a few different styles. We can just go with the .default style. And there's a bunch of these styles here. The one that you want is the UIAlertAction style .default. Sometimes it will complain if you use the wrong kind of default, even though they all look like they all say .default. All right, then this is where it gets a little bit hairy. This syntax here is a little bit weird, but basically what it's saying is you're passing in the method body into, it's called a lambda expression. I don't know if you guys have covered lambda expressions in C#. Basically, like it's like a function declaration right within the as a parameter. So you're basically defining the function on the fly as a parameter, because that's what this basically is it's a method declaration up here. So the syntax for that is you start off with a curly brace. So this is the opening of your method scope, and inside here you have your parameter, and in this case the parameter is going to look like this. It's a UIAlertAction. So this is the method body that we're creating. We're passing in a UIAlertAction. That didn't sound good.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. And then this is a little bit more weirdness yet. So you use the keyword in. So basically what this is saying, bless you, is the in parameter says, okay, everything that follows is part of my method body now. And then hit enter. And then you need to put a closing curly bracket there. Bless you again. And that creates basically your action. So as we go along in class, we're going to see a lot of these weird-looking lambda function declarations. So essentially, all it is you're just defining the function right on the fly as opposed to creating a separate function body. And then the in parameter basically says, okay, here's the code. The code that follows is everything that you're going to do when this alert action gets tapped. All right, so this is where you put the block of code of what we want to do. So if you come down here to the curly bracket and highlight it, the way I do is I usually hit Shift, arrow right, that highlights it, and then if you just hit the arrow by itself one more time, arrow right, you can see it'll highlight in yellow real briefly the corresponding curly. So those two match up. And if you come out to the parenthesis, the closing parenthesis needs to match up with this guy. And then these guys match up as the parameter. So as we get towards the end of the semester, and especially next semester, we'll see a lot of these kinds of things, these handlers, as we create asynchronous methods that get processed, in parallel. We'll have what's called completion handlers, and the completion handlers are what gets called once like say if we're making a call out to a website or a web API to get data, the completion handler will be what gets called when the data comes back. So we'll see a lot of these later on. Not too many right away, but later on in class we will. but this alert action is one of the places where we use it. All right, so this is, in here is what's going to happen once they tap OK. So we'll do something, oh wait, actually, getting ahead of myself a little bit. So this is where we're going to check the value of our variable. So you can cut that out if you have that down here, just cut that out. Command X will cut it out. And then you can paste that in this body here where the code's going to go between the in and the closing block there. So if B valid, we'll do this. We'll say self.view. Actually, let's not do it right away. Let's do a little animation for the user. We'll say UI view dot animate with duration. Now, this top one here is the one that we're going to use. And again, you see it's got one of these goofy looking declarations. So this one, I'm going to inundate you guys with this tonight so that you get used to seeing it. So again, this is basically this is saying we're passing in the function declaration right into as a parameter to this method. I'm going to hit enter. So what this is this is an animate with duration. What the animate with duration does is, I think we did this real briefly when we were working with the playgrounds. The animate with duration will create an animation. There's different types. There's like a swipe, there's a fade in, fade out, that kind of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a duration will last like 2 seconds. So this is the number of seconds it's going to last. And the animation, so again, this is going to be one of these guys. We create a curly bracket. There's no parameters to this guy. So the UI view animate with duration. So this is what the animation is going to be. We're going to do self.view.alpha. So that's the opacity of our view equals 0.0. So we're going to fade the view out. Okay. This line here is the ending line. So that's what we're going to end up at. Is the self.view.alpha equals 0. And I think that's all we're going to need. The only other thing we have to do now we created the action, we created the controller, is we have to add the action to the controller. So we say this, controller, down here at the bottom, dot add action. And then the action, of course, is the one we created. So that adds the action to our UIAlertController. So another name for these guys is closure. You get these curly brackets like this inside of a function parameter. It's a closure. Objective-C, they used to be called blocks. All right, self.view.alpha equals 0. That's what we're going to do. So we add the action to the controller. The last thing we have to do is any UI view controller, which a UIAlertController is derived from UI view controller. Any UI view controller, when you want to display it modally, you call this present view controller. Okay. Parameters to this guy. So what this is telling it is show this view controller on top of everything else. So basically it's like a modal dialog that blots everything out. The view controller to present is our one we created. Animated, well, yeah, we want it to look cool. And completion, here it is again, so another completion handler. Only this time, I'm just going to set this to nil. You can set this as nil. You don't have to have a completion handler. And that's it. So in this sense, I have the completion set to nil because basically the actual completion is being handled by our action up here. All right, so we should be ready to let this thing rip. I'm gonna go ahead and run it and wait a long time for the simulator to come up. Does anyone have an iPhone with iOS 10 on it? You do? So have you used like messages with the new like feature? Yeah. What do you think of it? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting an error on my home present.
Yeah, that's kind of a common gotcha with this present view controller is there's a presented view controller, and the presented view controller is actually a variable, which is the view controller that you presented. And we said,
Mine's up and running.
is it? So while I'm waiting for mine, did you try it? Yeah, you can go if you want. You can go ahead and try it out. Go ahead and try logging in.
Congratulations, you're logged in. And it faded to a black background.
That's what it's supposed to do. Now you kind of hang in there. We're not done yet, so you'll have to stop it. You're gonna punish the user for logging in. Yeah, it just fades to black, and then
Ever.
it's like you're
I'm gonna
done.
build that app. It's a black background.
Enjoy. Yeah.
And the login is
Mine's not working.
85 characters.
Okay.
I don't get-
All right. Before
85 characters.
before I come over there, I'll make sure mine does work.
Yeah, it's 5 characters. That is technically 5 characters because there's a space. Keyboard's not 5.
Yeah, that's what you should see. It should just fade to black and then just hang there. So you have to actually stop it.
I was like, his keyboard's not popping up. There's a way to change the setting, isn't there?
Yep, it's in the
I don't understand that.
hardware up here. If you want the keyboard to pop up, go to hardware, keyboard, and then uncheck the connect hardware. And now it'll pop up.
Just so that now you can't
So you broke yours.
yours.
I feel this here. Oh, it doesn't compile.
Take 5 minutes, just all 5 minutes. Done. And log in.
Something else weird going on.
False. You have got something not programmed correctly. I don't know what to do.
This guy and see.
It means you don't have something coded that I have coded. Did you use the one I sent to you?
I don't know which one was the one.
It was new.
Oh, it was new?
Yeah. Okay, the copy will be just typed in.
I got logged in, I didn't even know password.
He asked me what the password is, and I said it's Nate can't type. There's not a problem. He typed an appropriate password from there.
But if it's
It's
over,
85 characters.
if it's over 5, it works. Right?
Any, if we put the consensus in the Bible, we look
After
it must be at least 5.
Right. But if it's less than 5, it fails. If it's over 5, it's good.
Succeeds. Yeah.
I can't.
Just go grab the one. Did you remember the copy?
So how do we rescale it
And then in this one is where we want to paste.
Window.
simulator or
That's-
open scale?
I copied the whole
Well, that's what we just typed, the UI controller stuff.
thing. Right.
Okay, so that means you still have state to know. It's not.
Cool. All right, so if everything goes as planned, you should have this wonderful app that when the user logs in, it fades to black and just sits there. So, pretty enticing app. If I give an invalid login, get an epic fail. If I implement my advanced security and type in enough letters,
Epic fail.
I get a congratulations, and then it fades to black. Now the app is still active, it's still there, so you have to actually stop it. So the next thing is to actually do something a little bit more user-friendly than just have the app fade to black. All right, but just so you know, I mean, that's kind of a little user interface thing that you can add in to kind of enhance the app as, you know, do fade-ins, fade-outs. So, but now what we're going to want to do is give them something else to look at other than just a black screen. So if everyone's at a point where you're ready to continue on, I'm going to go ahead and add some more stuff. Okay, so sounds like everyone's okay. All right, so far we have a single view application that has a login screen. What we're going to do is now make this into a multi-screen application that gives them something more useful than just that login screen. Obviously, when you log into an application, you don't want to just log in and then have nothing happen. So we're going to create an application that actually does other stuff. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to add a new class to our app. So if you go up in the left-hand pane over here, the MST app folder, and select it, and then right-click on it, and then there's an option to do a new file. Click on the new file option, and this will give you, wow, this is really different. They switched this up quite a bit from the old user interface. Okay, everyone ready? If you're on Xcode 7, your interface is going to look quite a bit different than this.
Yeah.
So
Are you not on it? It was updated and then all of a sudden it came out again.
in the old interface, there should still be a Cocoa Touch class.
Yeah.
So you want to select that, and then if there, let me look at yours just to make sure, because there's an important step you don't want to miss. You guys have the,
Yeah, I had no problem.
okay, yeah, go ahead and select that, go next.
Yeah, I'm good then.
All right,
He's behind me.
all right, that's fine. I'll let you get caught up. Stay on that screen that you're on though, don't continue on. All right, so we want to add a new Cocoa Touch. So Cocoa Touch classes are classes that have basically our user interface classes. All these classes that we're working with are called Cocoa Touch. The Cocoa library is the original library of user interface stuff that first came out when they came out with iPhones, actually iPads, and so that's when the Cocoa Touch libraries were made. So you want a Cocoa Touch class. You can also do, you can do pretty much anything. You can embed C and C++ files yet in here, Objective-C. You can, you know, mix all that stuff. If you create just a straight Swift file, it will not be a Cocoa Touch class. It won't be a user interface class. It'll just be a straight Swift class. So we want Cocoa Touch and go next. And then in here, I'm going to call this guy second. just type the word second, and then subclass of, this is what your subclass, the class that you're deriving from. So this is going to be derived from UIViewController. And you notice that when I type in controller, when you type that in, it tacks it on to the name of your class. So that's why I just typed second, because as soon as you type UIViewController down here, it goes ahead and tacks that on. And many times I've typed in second view controller up here and then type UIViewController, and then it goes ahead and tacks it on again. So you end up with second view controller. All right, you also, this is very critical, you need to check this, also create zip file. And then the language is Swift, and then you go next. And it'll ask you where you want to keep it. This is the application folder. Yes, that's where you want it. You click create. And then that creates your class for you. As soon as you create a new Cocoa Touch class, it automatically puts this import statement in your file for you, the import UI kit. That's where all the UI goodies are. It creates the skeleton for view did load. Also have this did receive memory warning. Down here is another method body that it creates when you create another class that is a view class or a view controller class in an application. It automatically, Xcode kind of assumes, oh, you have multiple view controllers. You must be wanting to navigate between them. And then it has this override function, prepare for segue down here. Prepare for segue is a segue is a storyboard means of navigation. We're going to do our navigating in this app programmatically, so we don't need this method, but it goes ahead and kind of wires it up for you and comments it, but just in case you want to use it, it's there. So that all gets done for you, and then it also created this called a zip file. This is an Xcode interface builder file, so this is like a designer file. So this is the visual designer representation of our view controller, and then this is the code file that.
Kind of like the storyboard.
Yep, it's just like the storyboard. Only we're not going to actually add these guys to the storyboard. We're going to, because like I say, we're going to navigate to this programmatically. But for now, what we can do in here, so that when we can see it come up, is we can go ahead and do like we did in our first view controller. In the view did load. We can, that's the button tapped. In the view did load, we set the background color. We can do that in our second one too, because we want to maintain our mid-state theme. So I'm going to do a Command C and copy that code out of the first view controller and go into my second one, and in the view did load, I'm going to paste it in there. All right. So how do we get from the first one to the second one? All right. So what we're going to do, view controllers can present each other. So in the case of the alert that we created up here, the first view controller, which is just called view controller, presented the second one. When you do a present view controller, it brings it up modally so that that new view controller is on top of everything else. There's other ways of navigating. So you can present a view controller. You can use a navigation controller, which creates a nav stack to allow you to navigate between view controllers. You can create a segue, which is a storyboard control that allows you to navigate. So there's several different ways. We are going to do it programmatically, but we're also going to use the navigation controller to facilitate that. So if you open up the main storyboard file, okay, and here right now all we have is our primary view controller. And if I look at the properties of the view controller, over here on the right, in the view controller section, there is a is initial view controller, and that guy is checked. So that means that when the app starts up, it comes into this guy. All right, so what we're going to do now is with the view controller, make sure that that's highlighted here. Go up to the editor menu, And in the editor menu, down about midway is an embed in option. And we're going to come over here and we're going to embed our view controller in a navigation controller. All right, make sure you select the navigation controller. And then when you do that, some Apple magic takes place. Now all of a sudden, we have another view controller here. You make sure you have your view controllers. I wonder if Command Z will undo that. Let me see if that works. Yeah, it does. So if you screw up and select tab bar controller or something else, Command Z will actually undo that, which I think is an improvement. I don't think it used to do that. All right, so with the view controller selected, go up to your editor menu, and down about midway is an embed in option, and you pick navigation controller. Okay, when you do that, it does some fun stuff here to your storyboard. It added this guy, and it also created a new scene. Not really a scene, but it created a whole nother section down here. Now this is the navigation controller. So this guy now, and you have like this is one way you can do multiple screens in an iOS app is with a navigation controller. And in fact, navigation controllers are very, very, very common. A lot of apps have them. So this guy will appear up near the top. In fact, if you look at the view controller, now you notice there's this bar up there, which is going to mess with our logo. That is the navigation bar. So now we should have a navigation controller. Now if I click on our view controller and select it, you notice the initial view controller is no longer checked in our view controller. If you click on the navigation controller, this guy is the initial view controller. So now the application's navigation is being managed through this, and it creates what's called a nav stack, sometimes called the back stack, which is the stack of view controllers, and it manages it itself. So if I go ahead and run it now, there should be no significant changes other than you'll notice that there'll be a bar at the top of the view controller where there was none before, and our logo will probably be partially obscured. That's a pink bar too. No, Vikings are purple.
Now there was a piece of code I missed in the second view controller that you wrote in.
All I did was I took in the first view controller, or just view controller, in the view.did_load method, there's this self.view.background color, this stuff. I copied that, and then I went into the second view controller.swift, and I pasted it in here in the view.did_load.
I don't think I have that.
Yeah, Glenn.
My logo, according to the storyboard, should be okay, but when I ran it, it disappeared completely.
Okay, then there's probably a bad constraint.
Mine just started opening this to like a white screen. And like that. So that way you wouldn't see that going.
Okay.
It's like a white screen.
Sounds like Glenn's in a little bit better shape than you are. All right, so then what I would recommend doing is go into your storyboard and just do like a Control-Z and back out of it so that your navigation, get back to the point where everything was working. And we'll try to recreate it. Pretty soon we'll take a break here. Another.
Did you do that too?
Is yours comes up okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, then just leave it where it is. So So then once you're back to where everything was working, make sure that it runs okay.
Mine doesn't work for some reason.
I get a could not attach PID 2521 unable to attach.
That's a process ID. Were you trying to start up the simulator?
I don't know. I might have tried to run it twice.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It's trying to attach to a process. Okay, so Isaiah, are you back
It's just
to?
showing up as like the white screen with like the carrier on the top and like the time and the battery.
Okay,
It goes to the black screen of death.
No,
So-
white screen of death.
is it? But you did have it was displaying correctly before, right?
A little while ago.
So did you take the navigation controller back out?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so what you'll have to probably do is now that the navigation controller is gone, just a second, Nate. When the navigation controller is gone, just click on your initial view controller and then come over here to the view controller panel and make sure that the is initial view controller is checked.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, then try stopping it and I mean just do product stop and then rerun it.
I moved everything down and I was thinking maybe it was covering it up or something, but
Right.
that's not making a difference.
Okay, so now it's working again, and then I'll put in the.
Yeah, so go ahead and before you do that, stop it. So stop it from running. I mean, you don't have to close the simulator, but just stop it from running. And then go up and do make sure that when you do the embed, that you have the view controller selected. So it's framed in blue. And then do the editor, embed in, and select navigation controller. And if everything works correctly, you should have a navigation controller scene underneath your view controller scene. And you should have the little arrow that points to it. All right. Yeah, we're probably at a point where we should probably stop, and then I can see if I can help you guys out. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Is yours working, Isaiah? I mean, it should look something, maybe not identical, but something similar to what I have. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording right now.